Hello everyone, this is Christian Para and today I will be presenting my CIS 3367 final. And what I did for my final was pretty much take my midterm and modify it to meet the requirements for the final exam. And those requirements in this case was to add VBA code to my UFC dashboard for the midterm. I'm going to give everyone a quick rundown. For the midterm, I created a UFC dashboard where it shows different information like top 10 fighters to complete the most takedowns, most head strikes, attempt the most submissions, and these charts can be manipulated using these data slicers. So back to the remote control. So for my final, like I said, I added VBA, and this is my UFC remote control. And here's label weight class, and here are my different weight classes. Whoops. Flyweight, bantamweight, featherweight, lightweight. I could select welterweight and apply the weight class changes. And what just happened is pretty much, if we go to the dashboard, it manipulated this data slicer and it changed it to welterweight. And I also did that for age group. Here are the different age groups, and you're able to select let's say early 30s, and you press the button and it applies that filter to the dashboard. So now if we go to the dashboard, we can see now welterweights in their early 30s. Below that, I created a shortcut button that pretty much, once you press it, it'll take you to the dashboard. And as so, it'll take you to A1, and this is my dashboard. And on the dashboard, I also created a button to return back to the remote control. And here we're back at the UFC remote control. The next button below that is go to the Power View map. And once you press that, it'll take you to my Power View map, which I created. These are different age groups and weight classes and where they're located. Back to the remote control. And below that, I created a charts shortcut. So all the different charts here below, everything besides dashboard and Power View. So you'll have knockdown percentage, most head strikes, most takedown landed. And these are pretty much the tables I used and charts to create my dashboard. So if I select, let's say we want to go to the most submission attempts, say take shortcut, and now we're here, and then we could press the go to remote control and it'll take us back. So that's my UFC remote control, and as mentioned, I created this using VBA. So if we go to the developer tab, then we click Visual Basic, and here is my code. It's pretty much, I'll say about 200 and change lines if you include the comments and spacing. So the first procedure I created is the dashboard, and this macro displays the content of the dashboard worksheet. And it'll take you to the worksheet labeled dashboard, and it takes you to the A1 cell range. The next procedure or function I created was the change weight class, and this macro changes data slicer selections. And in this function, the slicer that is being manipulated is the weight class slicer. So I created an if statement, and this if statement checks cell C5 in the remote control sheet to see if the text equals flyweight. If it does, the weight class slicer will be filtered for the flyweight class only. If it doesn't, then the block of code will not run and it moves to the next statement. So here, if sheet's remote control, range, or cell C5 is equal to flyweight, then the slicer called weight class, change it to the flyweight division. I also created that for the bantamweight class. Featherweight, lightweight, welterweight, middleweight, light heavyweight, and I also created an all, so if you want to select all of them and see all the weight classes you can. As you can see, it required a bit more information because of the additional weight classes. The next procedure I created was the change age, and this macro changes data slicer selections. In this in this function, the slicer that is being manipulated is the age group slicer. And here's an if statement. This if statement checks cell C7 in the remote control sheet to see if the text value equals 20 and under. If it does, the age group slicer will be filtered for the 20 and under group only. If it doesn't, then the block of code will not run and it moves on to the next statement. So I did that for 20 and under, early 20s, mid 20s, late 20s, early 30s, mid 30s, late 30s, 40 and over, unknown. And just like the weight class, I also created an all age group. So it'll include every single weight class that I just mentioned above. The next procedure I created was the power view, and this macro displays the content of the power view worksheet. So once you press the button that I assigned this macro to, it'll take you to the power view sheet. I had to comment this out earlier because I forgot that there's no cells in my power view map. And oh, by the way, to comment something, you could just put a single quote and it'll turn green, meaning it's comment. Any code or anything that's in the comment section will not run. The next procedure I created was the remote control. So this macro pretty much takes you back to the remote control and then takes you to the cell A1. Excuse me. Now the shortcuts, which this macro displays the content of one of the sheets depending on what is selected in the dropdown. This function runs the dropdown selection through a set of if statements, and once it finds a match, the function transports the user to the chart on cell A1. So this if statement checks cell C13 if the remote control sheet to see if the text value equals knockdown percentages. If it does, once the button is pressed, the current view is moved to cell A1 of the knockdown percentages sheets. If it doesn't, then the block of code will not run and it moves on to the next statement. So here is the if sheets in a remote control range or cell C13, the value equals knockdown percentages, then sheets knockdown percentages is selected and you're taken to range A1. Now, what I had to look up on Google was this little dash right here. Apparently, if you add that dash, it means that go to the next line and run that as well. And then, so I created that for knockdown percentages, most head strikes, most takedowns landed, most submission attempts, most ground strikes landed, most body strikes landed. And that's pretty much for my VBA code. So just to reflect a little, I was extremely surprised that you were able to add VBA code into Excel, and what I think it does, the benefits of it, I think it makes a much user-friendly graphical interface instead of being, I don't want to say overwhelmed, but it can be depending on the person, all this information. So to be able to just see it all in one window or understand what you're doing, because I know this could be overwhelming, all these charts and tables. So I feel like this really gives the user a different experience, a much user-friendly experience. And so like me, I hope you learned. I hope I was able to teach you VBA. I also just learned, and I hope you liked my video. Thank you very much and have a good day.